There's a glitch in the human mind, a doorway. It was discovered centuries ago, and it acts as a circuit breaker for overthinking. When you activate it, the storm of thoughts doesn't just calm down, it stops instantly. This isn't about breathing techniques or positive affirmations. This is about discovering a passage no one ever told you existed. So, what is this glitch? First, you have to understand that your overthinking isn't a personal failing. It's simply the nature of a mind left to its own devices. Your mind is like a rushing river, always moving, always flowing, designed for one thing: making sense of the world, solving puzzles, ensuring your survival. The only challenge is this: when there are no real threats to navigate, no immediate dangers to address, the river doesn't simply become still. It starts creating whirlpools out of nothing just to keep moving. It rehearses conversations that will never happen. It relives moments from years ago, turning them over and over like smooth stones. It builds elaborate castles of worry about futures that exist only as phantoms. It replays that awkward moment from 3 days ago, analyzing every word, every gesture, every possible meaning. The mind, you see, is like a mill wheel. It needs something to grind. And when there's no grain, it grinds itself. Ancient masters understood this. They didn't see the mind as who we are. They saw it as something we experience like weather, like the changing seasons. Powerful, yes. Sophisticated, certainly. But also capable of creating storms out of nothing. And they discovered that you don't need to calm the storm by fighting it. You just need to know the way to step out of it entirely. So, what is this way out? Here's the beautiful twist. It's not a technique at all. It's a question. A single, simple question that your overthinking mind cannot answer while remaining in its spinning state. Zen masters had a profound understanding of how to derail a runaway mind. In the middle of a mental spiral, they would simply stop and ask, "What color is this moment?" It sounds almost childlike, doesn't it? Perhaps even absurd. But that's precisely why it works. Your mind, the part that's busy worrying about a conversation you must have tomorrow, has no way to answer this question without becoming quiet. It can't analyze a color. It can't rehearse a color. It can only look. To answer, you are pulled gently but irresistibly into this moment. You must notice the deep indigo of the evening sky, the golden amber of candlelight, the soft gray of shadows on the wall, the pale white of your ceiling. In that 1 second of pure seeing, when you're actually looking instead of thinking about looking, the overthinking loop dissolves like mist touched by morning Sunday. You've just used an impossible question to step outside the stream of thought. But let's be completely honest here. Stepping outside once is temporary. The mind is like a river that has flowed in the same direction for years, carving deep channels in stone. It will naturally return to these familiar patterns. The moment you answer, the color is blue. That familiar voice returns. Lovely. Now, back to worrying about that conversation tomorrow. This is where the deeper practice comes in. It's called stacking the glitch. Don't stop with one question. The moment you answer the first, immediately ask another, and then another. Ask, what color is this moment? Then, what is one sound I can hear right now? Then, what does the air touching my skin feel like? 1, 2, 3. Stack these simple observations of what is actually here. By the time you reach the third or fourth question, something shifts. You've created a sustained opening. You've stepped out of the river and onto the bank, where you can watch the water flow without being swept away. This isn't distraction, it's recognition. You're remembering that this quiet presence is a far more natural place to rest than the endless current of thought. Now, let me show you something even more profound, something the great teachers understood at the deepest level. Right now, as you read these words, a consciousness is present. This knowing is noticing the words. It's taking in the room around you. your body, your breath, your thoughts. But here's the question that changes everything. What is this presence made of? Not what do you think it's made of, not what you've been told, but directly, in your immediate experience, what is the actual nature of the consciousness that's present right now? Look for it. Try to find where this presence is located. Does it have boundaries? Does it have a center and an edge? Is it inside your head? Or does it somehow include the room you're in? What you'll discover, if you look sincerely, is extraordinary. You cannot find this presence as an object. It's not a thing you can point to. And yet it's the most intimate, immediate part of you. It's what you are prior to any thought about what you are. This knowing is like space itself. Space doesn't fight with the objects that appear in it. The space in this room doesn't struggle with the furniture, doesn't worry about the walls, doesn't try to push away the air. It simply allows everything to be as it is. Your true nature is like this space. Thoughts appear in it. Emotions move through it. Sensations arise and dissolve in it. But your true nature itself remains unchanged, untouched, at peace. The suffering comes not from the thoughts themselves, but from the belief that you are the thoughts, that you are the contents of consciousness rather than consciousness itself. It's as if the space in this room suddenly believed it was the furniture, and then began worrying about being moved, damaged, or worn out. The space cannot be damaged. It's the furniture that comes and goes, not the space that holds it. Your overthinking mind is like a river flowing through a valley. The thoughts are the water constantly moving, rushing, sometimes turbulent, sometimes calm. But you are not the water. You are the valley itself. Vast, unchanging, always here. The water can rage and storm all it likes. The valley remains undisturbed. When a thought arises that says, "I'm not good enough," that thought is like a wave appearing on the surface of the river. If you believe you are the wave, you suffer. The wave appears, crests, and crashes a whole drama of becoming and dissolving. But if you recognize yourself as the water itself, or even more, as the silent space in which both the river and the valley appear, then the wave is simply a temporary shape. It has no power to define you or disturb your essential nature. This understanding isn't something you achieve. It's something you recognize. Right now, in this moment, you are already the presence that is reading these words. You've never been anything else. You've simply been overlooking it, like someone searching everywhere for glasses that are already on their face. So let's return to our simple practice, but with this deeper understanding. When you ask, "What color is this moment?" you're not just interrupting thought. You're recognizing your true nature. The seeing of the color is consciousness, knowing itself as seeing. There's no separate you observing a color out there. There's just this seamless knowing, this intimate presence. When you ask, "What sound is here?" you're not a person hearing a sound. You are the hearing itself, consciousness taking the shape of sound. The sound doesn't happen to you. It happens as you, in you, through you. The distinction between hearer and heard dissolves in the actual experience of hearing. When you ask, "What does my body feel like?" you discover that sensations are not happening to a body. They are appearing in consciousness. The sensation of your hand touching the blanket isn't separate from the knowing of it. They are one seamless experience. Picture this. You're lying in bed, and your mind is spinning its familiar web. You're replaying a conversation from earlier, imagining scenarios for tomorrow, judging yourself for something you said, planning, analyzing, worrying, rehearsing. It's like being caught in a dust storm on an open plain, dust swirling everywhere, obscuring everything, filling your eyes and mouth until you can barely breathe. But what if you could simply step inside? Not by running away, not by building walls, but by recognizing you were never actually in the storm to begin with. The dust storm of thoughts appears in the vast, clear sky of consciousness. The sky has never been touched by the storm. Clouds pass through it, winds move through it, storms rage through it. But the sky itself remains pristine, spacious, at peace. You are not in the storm. The storm is in you. This isn't just a pretty metaphor. It's the actual structure of your experience. Thoughts appear in this open space. Emotions arise within it. Sensations occur. But the presence in which they appear is never disturbed, just as the mirror is never damaged by the images it reflects. Before we go deeper, you need to understand something fundamental. And I mean truly understand it, not just let it pass by as another interesting idea. Your overthinking isn't a character flaw. Let me say that again. Your overthinking is not a character flaw. It's not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's simply what happens when consciousness identifies with thought and forgets its own nature. Imagine you're sitting by a river on a summer afternoon. The water flows past, clear and cool. Sometimes leaves float by. Sometimes a fish jumps. Sometimes the current moves faster, sometimes slower. You're simply sitting there, watching it all pass. This is the natural state of being at rest, at peace, observing without judgment. But then, without noticing it happen, you suddenly believe you are a leaf floating on the river. Now, you're moving with the current, spinning in eddies, caught on rocks, swept toward rapids. Everything feels urgent, threatening, overwhelming. You've forgotten you were ever the observer on the bank. This is what we call being lost in thought. It's not that something has gone wrong. You've simply forgotten what you are. You've mistaken yourself for the content of experience rather than the consciousness in which all experience appears. The ancient teachers, those who spent their lives investigating the nature of the mind, they discovered something remarkable. They found that you don't need to change the river. You don't need to stop the leaves from floating, or calm the water, or make the fish stop jumping. You simply need to recognize, I am not the leaf, I am not the water, I am the silent witness in which the entire river appears. And the moment you recognize this, really recognize it. Not just think about it. Everything changes without anything changing at all. The river keeps flowing, the thoughts keep appearing, but you're no longer drowning in them because you've remembered you were never in the water to begin with. So what is this recognition? How does it happen? Here's where it gets beautifully simple, almost playfully so. The ancient sages discovered that trying to recognize your true nature through thought is like trying to see darkness by turning on more lights. Thought can't reveal what lies prior to thought. But if you gently redirect attention from the content of experience to the background of knowing, something immediate happens. Not something you achieve, something you notice. It's like this. Right now, you are perceiving these words. But can you turn your attention toward that which perceives? Not as an idea, not as a concept, but directly? Try it. Right now. Instead of focusing on what you're aware of, notice the knowing itself. What is its nature? What is it made of? Where does it begin and end? If you look sincerely, you'll find something astonishing. This presence has no edges, no boundaries, no inside or outside. It's not bright or dark, not heavy or light. It has no qualities at all, and yet it's more present, more certain, more intimate than anything else in your experience. It's like asking, what does space taste like? The question itself reveals the category error. Space has no taste, no color, no weight. And yet without space, nothing could appear. Nothing could exist. Your true nature is like this. Not a thing, not an object, not even a subject. Just this clear, open, knowing presence in which the entire world appears. And here's the liberating truth. This knowing presence has never been disturbed, not by your worst thoughts, not by your deepest fears, not by your most painful memories. It remains eternally at peace, like the depths of the ocean that are still and silent even when storms rage on the surface. The suffering you experience is not happening to this presence. It's happening within it. There's a world of difference between those two words, to and in. If suffering happens to you, you are in danger. You need to defend, fix, escape. But if suffering happens in you as a temporary appearance in the field of knowing, like a cloud passing through the sky, then there's no problem. Clouds come and go. The sky remains. Let me show you this even more directly. Right now, notice any thought that's present. Maybe it's a thought about what you just read. Maybe it's a thought about tomorrow. Maybe it's a judgment, a memory, a plan. Got one? Good. Now notice, where does this thought appear? Not where do you think it appears. Where, in your direct experience, does the thought actually arise? If you look carefully, you'll see that the thought appears in the same placeless place where these words appear, in consciousness. There's no inside your head where thoughts live separately from perception. There's just this one seamless presence in which thoughts, perceptions, sensations, and feelings all appear together. And this knowing is what you are, not what you have, what you are. You are not a person who has consciousness. You are consciousness itself, temporarily and playfully taking the shape of a person, the way water takes the shape of a wave. The wave is not separate from the ocean. It's not other than water. It's water expressing itself as wave form, and you are not separate from this presence. You are this very presence expressing itself as human form, as thought form, as sensation form. When the wave recognizes it's made of water, it stops fearing the other waves. It stops trying to become bigger, better, more permanent. It relaxes into its nature, knowing that whether it crests high or crashes low, it's always been water, always will be water, and water cannot be harmed. This is what the teachers mean when they speak of enlightenment, awakening, liberation, not becoming something you're not achieving some special state, simply recognizing what you've always been. It's like a character in a dream realizing they're made of the same mind that's dreaming them. Suddenly the character's problems, the dream dangers, the dream desires, the dream fears are seen for what they are. Not threats to be avoided, but temporary appearances in consciousness, made of consciousness, never separate from consciousness. Now, let's bring this understanding to the simple practice. When you're lying in bed and the mind starts spinning, replaying, rehearsing, worrying, judging, you can meet it in two ways. The first way, you can try to stop the thoughts, calm the mind, think better thoughts. This is like trying to smooth out ripples on a pond by pressing down on them with your hand. It only creates more ripples. The second way, you can recognize that thoughts are simply appearances in consciousness, and you are that consciousness, not the thoughts. This is like recognizing you are the water, not the ripples. The ripples can dance all they like. The water remains water. From this recognition, you might gently ask, what color is this moment? Not to fix anything, not to achieve anything, but simply to rest as what you are, the seeing itself. And what happens when you ask this? Attention naturally shifts from the content of thought to the immediacy of perception, from the story about life to the living reality of this moment, from the wave's drama to the water's peace. You notice the deep blue of twilight, not as a person observing a color out there, but as consciousness knowing itself as color. The separation between seer and seen collapses. There's just this seeing, being, knowing all as one seamless happening. Then, what sound is here? And perhaps you hear the wind in the trees, or silence itself, which is not the absence of sound, but a presence of its own, the background hum of existence. And again, there's not someone hearing something. There's just hearing happening, consciousness knowing itself as sound. Then, how does the body feel right now? And you notice the weight of your body against the bed, the softness of the pillow, the temperature of the air. But instead of a person having these sensations, you recognize these sensations are appearances in consciousness. They're not happening to you. They're happening as you, in you, through you. 1, 2, 3. With each question, you're not trying to escape thought or suppress it. You're recognizing the presence that is already free of thought, already at peace, already complete. The thoughts might still be there, like ripples on a pond, but you've recognized yourself as the water, not the ripples. And water doesn't suffer from ripples. Water is at peace being water, regardless of what shapes it takes. This is stacking the glitch, but now you understand it's not really a technique. It's a gentle remembering, a returning home, a recognition that you never left home, but simply overlooked it. Each time you ask these questions, you're not building something new. You're removing the veils that obscured what was always here. Like opening curtains to let light in, except the light was always present, and you are the light itself. By the third or fourth question, something has shifted. The thoughts might still be appearing, but they're happening in a much larger space. They're like birds flying across a vast sky. The sky isn't troubled by the birds. It doesn't need them to leave or stay. It simply is, allowing everything to be as it is. You've starved the overthinking of the one thing it needs to create suffering. The belief that you are the thoughts. The identification with content, rather than resting as your true nature. Let me show you how to use this throughout your day, in the simplest, most natural ways. In the morning, before you rise from bed, before the day's demands begin their chorus, lie there for a moment and ask, what is it that knows this moment? Not what am I aware of? What is the knowing itself? Notice that this knowing presence is already clear, already awake, already at peace, before any thought of what you must do today, before any memory of yesterday, before any concern about anything at all. You might then ask, what color is the morning light? And simply see it. Not think about it. Not judge it as pretty or dull. Just see it, consciousness being aware of itself as color, as light, as this. Then, what's the first sound? Perhaps birds, perhaps silence, perhaps the house settling. And you're not a person hearing sounds. You are hearing itself. Then, what does this body feel like? The warmth of the bed, the weight, the softness. And these aren't happening to a body. They're appearances in this open space, made of this space, never separate from it. 3 questions, perhaps 30 seconds. And you've begun your day not from the small, worried sense of the separate person who must face a difficult world, but from the vast, peaceful recognition of your own true nature, which has no problems, no worries, no conflicts to resolve. In the spaces between, throughout the day, there are gaps, walking from one room to another, waiting for water to boil, standing at a window. These spaces are golden opportunities. Instead of immediately filling them with plans or worries, simply ask, what's the texture of this moment? Not to achieve anything, not to become more mindful or spiritual, simply because it's true. This moment has a texture, a quality of light, sound, sensation, presence. And noticing it, you remember what you are. You might notice the coolness of the floor beneath your feet, the warmth of sunlight through glass, the particular quality of afternoon silence. And in that noticing, thinking naturally subsides, not because you've pushed it away, but because consciousness has recognized itself, and that recognition is inherently peaceful. In the evening, as the day winds down and you prepare for rest, this practice becomes especially powerful. The mind often wants to review the entire day, what you did well, what you did poorly, what you must do tomorrow. Instead, as you lie down, ask, what is here when thinking stops? And for a moment, let thinking actually stop. Not forced, not suppressed, just for a moment. Let it be quiet. What remains? This aware presence. This knowing that's always been here. Not the knowing of facts or information, but the knowing that simply is the light of consciousness by which everything is known. Then, what color is this darkness? Because even darkness has shades deep, purple, soft gray, the faint glow of moonlight. What sounds live in this silence? The house breathing, the world settling. Your own heart beating that ancient drum that's kept time your entire life without you asking it to. What does it feel like to rest? The surrender of weight into the bed, the loosening of the day's tensions, the softness of this moment, requiring nothing, going nowhere. Stack these observations, 5, 6, 7. Make a meditation of it. Not to achieve sleep, though sleep often comes more easily, but to rest as this presence itself, which never needs to sleep, because it never does anything at all. It simply is. In the middle of the night, here's where this practice reveals its true power. You wake at 3 a.m. and immediately the mind presents its inventory of concerns. Every worry you successfully forgot during the day comes flooding back with amplified urgency. This is the moment. Not to fight it, not to judge yourself for waking or for worrying, but simply to ask, what is it that witnesses this worrying? And you recognize, there's the thought I'm worried about tomorrow. And there's the silent witness that knows that thought. These are not the same thing. The thought is an object, temporary, changing, coming and going. But the witness is the subject, unchanging, always here. Never coming or going because it never leaves. Which are you? The temporary object or the eternal subject? When you recognize yourself as the witness rather than as the thought, the worry doesn't necessarily disappear. It might still be there, but it's happening in a much larger space. It's like the difference between being trapped in a small closet with an angry wasp and standing in a vast meadow where a wasp happens to be flying somewhere in the distance. Same wasp, completely different experience. From this recognition, you might ask, what color is this darkness? And actually look. The darkness is never pure black. There are always gradations, subtle shades, the faint luminescence of night. What sounds are here? The house settling, the wind in the trees, your breath, the silence underneath all sounds. How does this pillow feel? The coolness, the softness, the simple fact of resting. By the 5th or 6th question, you'll often find yourself drifting back toward sleep. Not because you've distracted yourself from worry, but because you've recognized what you are, and what you are has never been disturbed by thought, never been troubled by worry, never been anything other than this clear, open, knowing presence that allows all things to be as they are. In conversation, here's a subtle but profound practice. When you're speaking with someone, notice how often you're not actually listening. You're preparing your response. You're judging what they're saying. You're thinking about how you're being perceived. In the middle of this, ask yourself, what is it that's hearing this conversation? And suddenly there's a space. You're not lost in the content anymore. You become conscious of the silent space that holds the entire exchange. From here, you might notice, what color are their eyes? And actually see them, not analyze them, not think about them. Just see them, and in that seeing, You're suddenly present in a way you weren't a moment before. What's the tone of their voice? Not the words, but the quality, the music of human speech. What does it feel like to listen? The receptivity, the openness, the natural warmth that arises when you're actually present rather than lost in self-concern, and you become, paradoxically, a much better conversationalist. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're no longer divided between being present and thinking about being present. There's just these two beings appearing in consciousness, consciousness conversing with itself, the wave of knowing rolling back on itself in play. Now, here's something important to understand. When you first begin this practice, a part of your mind will likely resist it. And it's crucial to see why. Because this resistance itself is revealing. The mind will say, this is avoidance. I should be solving these problems, not just noticing colors. This is too simple. Real wisdom requires years of study, deep practice, intense effort. I feel foolish asking what color this moment is when I have real concerns to address. This might work for others, but my situation is different, more complicated, more serious. Notice what's happening here. The mind is defending its centrality. It's arguing that you are the thoughts, that the problems are real, that suffering is necessary, that peace requires first solving every difficulty. But here's the deeper truth. The mind derives its sense of importance from having problems to solve. If there are no problems, if everything is already perfect as it is, if you are already the peace you seek, then what is the mind's purpose? This is why the ego, the sense of being a separate person, will resist this recognition. Not because the recognition is wrong, but because it reveals that the separate person was never more than a thought, a concept, a habit of perception. It's like a character in a play, suddenly realizing they're not actually a character. They're the actor playing the character, and the actor was never in any danger from the play's drama. The character resists this recognition because the character's entire existence depends on believing the play is real. But the actor is already free, already at peace, already whole, regardless of what's happening in the play. So when guilt arises about just noticing colors while I have real problems, recognize this guilt is itself just another appearance in consciousness. It's not you. It's not even yours. It's a thought, arising and passing, like a cloud moving through the sky. And then gently ask, in this actual moment, prior to the thought about problems, is there a problem? Not in the story about your life, not in the past or future, but right here, right now, in this immediate, direct experience, is there actually a problem? Usually, there isn't. The problems exist in time, in thought, in the narrative of me and my life. But in the immediate now, in the simple, direct experience of simply being, of seeing color, of hearing sound, of breathing, there's just this. And this is perfectly manageable. This has never been a problem. It's the thought about this that creates suffering. The story about what this means, what it will lead to, what it says about you. But the thought is not you. The story is not you. You are the space in which thoughts and stories appear. And that space has never suffered, never struggled, never needed anything to be different than it is. So let's say you've been practicing this for some time. You've become familiar with asking these questions, with recognizing this presence, with resting as what you are rather than identifying with what appears in you. Something profound begins to happen. The gaps between thoughts naturally widen. Not because you're trying to stop thinking, but because thinking is no longer reinforced by identification. It's like a fire that burns itself out when you stop adding fuel. You start to notice thoughts arising in a completely new way. Previously, every thought was immediately believed, immediately identified with, immediately real. If a thought said, I'm not good enough, you were certain it was true. If a thought said, "This will go wrong," you braced for disaster. But now, you begin to see. Thoughts are just thoughts. Their appearances in consciousness, like images on a screen. The screen is never affected by the images. A scary movie doesn't frighten the screen. A sad movie doesn't make the screen sad. You are like the screen. The thoughts are like the images. And recognizing this changes everything without changing anything. You might notice the thought, "I'm not good enough," arise, and instead of immediately becoming that thought, there's a slight pause, a space, a knowing that thinks, "Oh, that's the not good enough thought." That one appears regularly. It's not that you're analyzing the thought or trying to change it. You're simply recognizing it for what it is, a temporary visitor in the home of consciousness, no more substantial than a breeze through an open window. This is the beginning of what the ancient traditions called wisdom. Not knowledge, not information, not philosophical understanding, but direct recognition of the nature of things. You see that thoughts are like weather patterns. They come and go according to their own logic, their own momentum. You don't need to take them personally, any more than you take the rain personally. Rain falls, thoughts arise. Both are natural, both are temporary. Neither defines you nor threatens you when you recognize what you are. And here's something remarkable. You might find yourself thinking less, but living more fully. This seems paradoxical until you realize how much energy was being consumed by unproductive thought. The rehearsing, the replaying, the running imaginary scenarios, the worrying about worrying. When you're truly present, when you're cooking and you're actually there with the smell, the color, the texture of the food, you're far more engaged than when you're cooking while simultaneously thinking about 17 other things. The old teachers had a beautiful way of describing this. They said the mind is an excellent servant, but a terrible master. When you're directing the mind, using it to solve actual problems, create, plan, communicate, it's invaluable. But when the mind is running on its own, generating endless commentary about life rather than engaging with life, that's when suffering arises. The practice doesn't eliminate the mind. It doesn't make you incapable of thought. It simply returns the mind to its proper place, a useful tool that arises when needed and subsides when not, rather than a tyrant demanding your constant attention. Now, someone might object, but what about real difficulties? What about actual challenges? Are you saying I should just notice colors while my life crumbles? This is an important question. Let's address it directly. No one is suggesting you ignore genuine challenges or avoid taking necessary action. If you're cold, you put on a coat. If you're hungry, you eat. If a relationship needs attention, you give it attention. But here's what becomes clear through practice. Most of your mental suffering has nothing to do with actual present moment challenges. It's about phantom difficulties, possible problems, past problems that can't be changed, future problems that may never materialize. Real difficulties, the kind that actually exist right now and require immediate response, usually have clear actions associated with them. They don't require endless thought. They require simple, direct response. It's the imaginary difficulties that consume most of your mental energy, the rehearsing of conversations, the replaying of past events, the worrying about what might happen, the anxiety about others' opinions, the fear of future scenarios. And here's the profound thing. This mental activity doesn't prepare you for real difficulties. If anything, it exhausts you, drains your energy, clouds your clarity so that when a genuine challenge does arise, you're less able to meet it effectively. Have you ever solved a real problem at 3 a.m. while lying in bed worrying about it? Or do genuine solutions arise when your mind is clear, your heart is calm, your being is present? The paradox is that presence, the very thing the overthinking mind dismisses as passive or naive, is actually the foundation for effective action. You can't see clearly, respond wisely, or act compassionately when you're lost in a storm of anxious thought. But when you're resting as this quiet presence, when you've recognized the peace that you are, then action arises naturally, effortlessly, appropriately. Not from worry or fear, but from clarity and presence. The wave doesn't need to figure out how to move. It's moved by the ocean. When you recognize yourself as consciousness rather than as a separate person, action happens through you without the burden of trying to make it happen. As your practice deepens, something else begins to occur. The questions themselves start to evolve and deepen. At first, what color is this moment? Is a tool, a way to interrupt overthinking and return to presence. But gradually, it becomes something richer. It becomes genuine inquiry. You're not asking to achieve a result. You're asking because you're actually curious about the nature of this moment. What is the quality of this light? Not as a concept, but as a lived reality. What is it like to see, really see, without the filter of thought? What reveals itself when you look without the looking being colored by judgment, preference, or interpretation? This is when the practice transforms from a coping mechanism into a genuine exploration of consciousness itself. You might find yourself asking deeper questions. What is it that sees color? What is it that knows seeing is happening? What's the space in which these sounds appear? Is that space separate from the sounds themselves? What am I before any thought arises? What remains when thinking stops? These aren't philosophical puzzles to solve intellectually. They're invitations to look directly at your actual experience and see what's true. And what you discover, again and again, is this: consciousness is prior to all content. It's the light by which everything is known. It's not a thing, not an object, not even a subject. Just this clear, open, knowing presence that has always been here. The ancient teachers loved to play with this. They'd ask, who are you when you're not thinking about who you are? Not as a riddle, but as an invitation to notice directly. Right now, before any thought about yourself arises, what are you? Not what do you think you are, but what is actually here when there's no thought claiming to be you. If you really look, you find this intimate, indefinable presence. You can't grab it. You can't locate it. You can't define it. And yet it's more certain, more immediate, more undeniable than anything else. It's like trying to see your own eyes. You can't, because you are the seeing. You're not an object that can be seen. You're the subject that sees. And yet this doesn't make you less real. It makes you more fundamental than any object could ever be. This is what you are. Not a thing, not a person with consciousness, but consciousness itself, temporarily taking the form of a person, the way water temporarily takes the form of a wave. And just as the wave is never separate from the ocean, never in danger from the ocean, never threatened by the ocean, never needing to return to the ocean because it never left you, are never separate from this presence. You are this presence itself, playing in form. This recognition is what the teachers call liberation, awakening, enlightenment. But these words make it sound like something exotic, something far away, something requiring years of practice or special grace. In truth, it's the most ordinary thing imaginable. It's what you are right now, what you've always been, what you couldn't stop being even if you tried. You can forget what you are. You can overlook it. You can become so identified with thoughts and feelings and sensations that you lose sight of the presence in which they all appear. But you can never actually become something other than this presence, just as a wave can never become something other than water. The whole spiritual search, the whole journey of awakening, is simply the process of consciousness recognizing itself. It's not about becoming something you're not. It's about seeing clearly what you've always been. It's like waking from a dream in which you believed you were a character, limited, vulnerable, in danger, and recognizing you were the mind dreaming the character all along. The character's problems were never your problems. The character's limitations were never your limitations. You were always the infinite consciousness in which the finite character appeared. Now, in practical terms, how do you live from this recognition? You begin to see that there are two levels of functioning, and both are valid, both are true in their own way. On the conventional level, you still appear as a person. You still have a name, a history, preferences, relationships. You still make plans, pay bills, have conversations, face challenges. This level doesn't disappear. The character continues to play their role in the world, but you're no longer exclusively identified with this level. You know that beneath the person, prior to the person, more fundamental than the person, there is this consciousness, vast, open, free, at peace. It's like being an actor in a play. You still deliver your lines, still engage with the plot, still interact with other characters, but you're not confused about being the character. You know you're far more than any role you play. This creates a profound freedom. You can still experience emotion, joy, sadness, frustration, love, but you're also conscious of the silent space in which these emotions appear. You can have preferences, but you're not tyrannized by them. You can face challenges, but you're not overwhelmed by them. The emotions and preferences and challenges are like weather passing through the sky of consciousness. The sky allows all weather. It doesn't resist storms or cling to sunshine. It simply is spacious enough to hold everything, disturbed by nothing. This is what the old Zen teachers meant when they spoke of being in the world but not of it. You're fully engaged with life, fully present, fully responsive, but you're no longer suffering from the belief that you are a separate, vulnerable entity to whom things happen. Instead, you recognize you are the space in which life happens, the presence in which all experience appears, the consciousness that takes the shape of both the experiencer and the experienced. And from this recognition, life doesn't become perfect in the conventional sense. Challenges still arise, the body still ages, situations still change, loss still happens. But suffering the kind that comes from resisting what is, from believing you're a separate self that needs protecting, from identifying with the content of experience rather than resting as your true nature, this suffering naturally dissolves. Not because you've eliminated it, but because you've seen through the illusion that created it. It's like the moment in a nightmare when you realize you're dreaming. The nightmare continues. The images, the events, the sensations, but you're no longer frightened because you know none of it can actually harm you. You're not in the nightmare. The nightmare is in you, made of you, never separate from you. When you're speaking with someone, you're fully there, listening, responding, connecting. But you're also aware of the presence that holds the entire exchange. There's no longer the anxiety of, how am I being perceived? Because you've recognized that both perceiver and perceived arise in the same field of knowing. When you're working, you're completely engaged in the task, but you're no longer driven by the fear of failure or the hunger for success because you've recognized that both failure and success are temporary appearances in the eternal presence that you are. When you're experiencing joy, you're fully present for it, not holding back, not protecting yourself from its inevitable passing. Because you know that whether joy is present or absent, you remain. The presence that knows joy is itself eternally joyful, not the joy that comes and goes, but the joy of simply being, which has no opposite and needs no reason. Life becomes more vivid, more immediate, more real, not because anything has changed, but because you're no longer experiencing it through the filter of a separate self that's constantly evaluating, judging, protecting, defending. There's just this life living itself, consciousness knowing itself, the dance of being with no dancer needed. So you've learned the practice. You understand the deeper recognition it points to. You've glimpsed the possibility of resting as this presence rather than identifying with thought. But this raises the deepest question of all. The question that, if truly contemplated, dissolves every other question and reveals what has always been true. If you can step back and watch your thoughts like clouds passing through the sky, if you can observe your emotions like waves rising and falling on the ocean, if you can notice your sensations like ripples on the surface of a still pond, then who or what is doing the observing? Not who do you think is observing, not what you've been taught to believe, but directly, immediately, in your actual experience right now. What is this knowing presence? Can you find it? Can you locate it? Does it have a center or an edge? Does it have a beginning or an end? Is it inside your body or outside? Is it large or small? Bright or dark? Something or nothing? Look for it now. Actually look. Not with your eyes, but with attention itself. Where is the consciousness that's reading these words? What is it made of? What is its nature? If you look sincerely, without immediately reaching for concepts or beliefs, you discover something that's both shocking and utterly obvious. You cannot find it as an object. And yet, it's more present, more intimate, more undeniable than anything you could ever find. It's like asking, where is the space in this room? You can point to objects in space, the bed, the walls, the ceiling, but you cannot point to space itself. And yet space is more fundamental than any object it contains. Without space, no object could exist. Without this knowing, no experience could arise. You are not an object appearing in consciousness. You are the consciousness in which all objects appear. And this consciousness has no problems. None. Think about it. Every difficulty you've ever experienced has been a difficulty for the person. The limited identity, the character, the sense of being a separate self. I'm not good enough. I might fail. People will judge me. This will go wrong. I'm alone. I'm in danger. But this silent presence itself, it has never worried about being good enough. It has never feared failure. It's never felt judged, or alone, or in danger. Your thoughts about yourself might be troubled. The story of me might be full of problems. But the consciousness that knows this story, that sees these thoughts arise and pass, has never been touched by them. It's like the screen on which a movie plays. The screen displays images of fire, but it's never burned. It shows images of water, but it's never wet. It presents images of danger, but it's never threatened. You are like the screen. All experience, thoughts, emotions, sensations, perceptions is like the movie. The content can be peaceful or turbulent, joyful or sorrowful, pleasant or painful. But the presence in which it all appears remains unchanged, unharmed, eternally at peace. This isn't a belief to adopt. It's not a philosophy to practice. It's your actual, immediate, direct experience once the habit of overlooking it is seen through. Right now, prior to any thought about yourself, there is this knowing presence. It's not something you achieve or create. It's what you are before any doing, before any becoming, before any trying. And it's completely okay. It always has been. It always will be. Not okay in the sense of acceptable or good enough, but okay in the sense of whole, complete, lacking nothing, needing nothing, at peace with everything exactly as it is. This is what you are. This is what you've always been. This is what you could never stop being, even if you wanted to. The journey of awakening isn't about getting somewhere else. You're already here. You've always been here. It's about removing the veils, the habits of thought, the identifications, the beliefs that prevented you from recognizing what's always been obvious. Like someone who spent their whole life searching for their glasses, not realizing they were wearing them the entire time. So where does this leave you, practically, as you lie here preparing for sleep? Right here, right now, as you've always been. But now, perhaps with a key, a simple way to return whenever you forget, whenever you become lost in the dream of being a separate person with problems to solve and dangers to avoid. 3 questions. 3 doorways home. What color is this moment? And you look, not to find something, but to rest, as the looking itself. The presence that's aware of color, the seeing that has no seer, just as breathing has no breather. It simply happens. What sound is present? And you listen, not to the sound as something separate from you, but to the hearing itself. Consciousness taking the form of sound, knowing itself as this particular vibration in the field of experience. What does it feel like to be here? And you notice the weight, the warmth, the simple fact of existing. Not a person existing, but existence itself, aware of its own being. 1, 2, 3. By the 3rd question, you've returned, not traveled somewhere, just remembered what you are. Like waking from a dream and recognizing the familiar bedroom that was here all along. You are the presence in which all experience appears, the peace that has no opposite, the knowing that has never arrived or departed because it is always already here. And from this recognition, you can let the day dissolve, let the thoughts come and go like fireflies in the evening. Let the words drift past like leaves on a stream. Let the plans and memories and all the elaborate stories of me and my life rest for the night. Because you are not the stories. You've never been the stories. You are the clear, open space in which stories appear and disappear, like words written on water. The body can rest now. The mind can quiet. But you, consciousness itself, you don't need to rest because you've never done anything. You don't need to quiet because you've never been disturbed. You don't need to become peaceful because you've never been anything other than peace itself. So as your eyes grow heavy and your breathing slows and the boundary between waking and sleeping grows soft and permeable, know this: you are not falling asleep. You are consciousness allowing the appearance of sleep to arise. Just as you are not waking, you are consciousness allowing the appearance of waking to arise. Sleeping and waking are like waves on the ocean. You are the ocean itself, never increased by the wave, never diminished by its absence. Let the world dissolve now into darkness. Let the thoughts scatter like birds at dusk. Let everything you thought you were, everything you thought you needed to become, everything you thought you had to solve, let it all rest in the vast embrace of consciousness. And notice, even as everything dissolves, you remain. This knowing, this presence, this intimate aliveness that requires no object, no experience, no proof of its existence. You are here. You've always been here. And here is not a location. It's what you are. What color is this moment? Look now. Let your eyes take in the darkness, not pure black, but a living darkness with depth and texture and subtle gradations of shadow and light. What sound is present? Listen. The silence is full. The night has its own music. Your breath is a tide coming and going, and you are the shore it touches, eternal and unmoved. What does it feel like to rest? Feel it now. The complete surrender of weight. The body becoming heavy, becoming nothing, dissolving into the soft surface that holds it. You are not the body. You are the presence in which sensations of body arise, and that presence is as light as space itself, unburdened by any weight at all. 3 questions. 3 doorways. But now, you see, they're not doors at all. They're recognitions, reminders, ways of noticing what's always been true. You are home. You've never left home. And home is not a place. It's what you are when you're not believing the story of being somewhere else. So rest now as this presence, as the peace that understands all turmoil without being touched by it. as the light that illuminates all experience without being brightened or dimmed by what it reveals. Let the night take the body into sleep. Let consciousness play its dream of rest and renew. But know that you, what you truly are, you never sleep and never wake. You are the eternal witness, the unchanging presence, the infinite consciousness in which all finite experience appears and disappears like clouds in the autumn sky. And in this recognition, all seeking ends, not because you've found what you were looking for, but because you've realized you were never lost. The seeker and the sought were always one. The journey and the destination were always here. The problem and the solution were always this consciousness, knowing itself, being itself, needing nothing, lacking nothing, complete. Let that be enough. Let this moment, just as it is, be enough. Let yourself, just as you are, be enough. Not enough in comparison to some ideal, but enough in the absolute sense, whole, complete, requiring nothing added or taken away. You are the glitch that reveals the program. You are the presence that sees the mind. You are the space in which the entire universe of experience unfolds, vast, open, free, and you can return here anytime at all. Not by traveling somewhere, but by asking 3 simple questions that remind you what you've never stopped being. What color is this moment? What sound is present? What does it feel like to be? The answers don't matter. The asking itself is the return. Each question is a doorway from the dream of separation back to the recognition of what you are undivided, whole, at peace. Rest well now. Let go of everything, every thought, every worry, every plan, every memory, every identity, every role, every story. Let it all dissolve into the darkness like salt into the ocean. And rest is what remains, this clear, open, knowing presence that has never been born and will never die, that has no problems and needs no solutions, that is already, always, timelessly at peace. You are not the storm. You never were. You are the vast sky in which storms appear and disappear, leaving no trace. You are the deep ocean beneath the waves. You are the consciousness in which the whole dance of existence arises, unfolds, and returns to stillness. In this presence, what you truly are is already resting, already at peace, already home. There is nowhere to go, nothing to become, nothing to fix or change or improve. Just this, just here, just now, perfect as it is, complete as it is, whole as it is. Rest in what you are, and know that what you are is already, always, eternally at rest.